Now we're looking at converting from decimal into hexadecimal. Now this is slightly trickier, but as I mentioned in the previous video, it's always a good idea to write out what those letters in hexadecimal actually are equivalent to in decimal. So I'm just going to write those out there because we may want to use those a little bit later. So first things first, when you get a number in decimal and you want to convert it into hexadecimal, is you write out your place values for hexadecimal. They're powers of 16, 16 to the 0, 16 to the power of 1, 16 squared. You're very rarely going to need to go beyond those, or possibly even beyond these two place values. But let's write out 3 for now. So that's 1, 16 and 16 squared is 256. Okay, so those are our place values. Let's first of all take a simple number, say the number 9 in decimal. How would we write that in hexadecimal? Well, quite simply, we say, well, how many times does 256 fit into 9? Well, it doesn't at all, so we can ignore that place value. 16 doesn't fit into 9, so we can ignore that place value. 1 does fit into 9. It fits in 9 times. And so the number 9 in decimal is equivalent to the number 9 in hexadecimal. Nice and simple. Let's take the decimal number 14. Also simple, because our hexadecimal numbers can use one digit to represent all numbers up to 15. We know that 14 is equivalent to E, so we don't even need to do anything here. We can just simply write in E base 16 is equivalent to 14 base 10. What about for numbers 16 or greater? Let's take the number 16. So how many times does 256 fit into 16? Well, no times. How many times does 16 fit into 16? Well, it fits in 1 time. We do 1 times 16, which is 16, and deduct it from our original number, and this gives us 0 remainder, so we can write in 0 in our final place value. So that shows us that 16 is equivalent to 10 in hexadecimal. Let's go a little higher. How about the number 50 in decimal? Again, we start from left and working to right. How many times does 256 fit into 50? No times. How many times does 16 fit into 50? Well, that one fits in 3 times. That gives us 16 times 3, which we can do in our head as 48. We deduct that from our original number to calculate the remainder. The remainder is 2. And so we pop that in our last place value. There we have it. 50 in decimal is equivalent to 32 in hexadecimal. Let's do one final one that's a little tricky. How about the number 172? So how many times does 256 fit in to 172? No times, so we don't need that place value. How many times, however, does 16 fit into 172 equally? It fits in 10 times. But of course, we can't just write 10 in this column because we've only got space for 1 digit. So this is where we look at our table. And we go, okay, well, I know that 10 is A in hexadecimal, so I'm just going to write in A there instead. A, which is 10, times 16 gives me 160. So I'm going to use that to calculate my remainder, which is 12. I've now got 12 to put in my last column. Now that's strange again. I can't write 2 digits into one column, one place value. So I look at my table again. I've got 12 and I know that 12 is C, so I can put C in there. And so the number 172 in decimal is equal to the number AC in hexadecimal.